Welcome everyone, this is your host Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. First of all, this channel is proudly sponsored by D3 Studios, the publishers and developers of Dames of Asstoria, a tabletop role-playing game where you play as monster girls, experiencing high adventure in a world that doesn't fully accept them. They have recently released Daughters of Lamb. This is a pay what you want tabletop RPG where you get to play as cybernetic nuns with guns, looking for the missing pieces of their AI god. You will find it in their website. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. This channel is also proudly sponsored by the Red Room Publishing. Please check out their store for exclusive tabletop RPG products and check out their Micro Red category of games. They are ready to play tabletop RPGs with their settings and a streamlined version of the Red system, perfect for pick up and play. You will find it in the description and in the pinned comment as well. Today, I am presenting my complete review of a very awesome solo role-playing game. I present to you Vampire Hunter, solo horror role-playing, at your local theater this Friday at 7:30 p.m. This is a solo RPG where you play the role of a valiant vampire hunter, facing off against the intrigues and plans of a vampire, or more than one vampire. It depends, you never know what will happen in these solo adventures. Now, let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The quality is excellent. When you purchase this document, you obtain several files. Well, you obtain the full color map of Bavaria. This is the setting for the game. You also have the core book, of course, and a fillable character sheet. So that is incredible. Everything is well written, organized, and explained. And I have to say the bookmarks are perfectly organized. If you haven't seen my actual play, I'm going to put the link in the description of this video, the playlist. I was running things using the bookmarks and it was such a smooth experience. So the writing, the organization, the graphic design is somewhat minimalistic, very easy on the eyes. You have black and white illustrations, very appropriate of course for the theme. So overall, the highest in terms of quality. Now let's talk about the contents. In Vampire Hunter you have an introduction. There is an explanation on how to use the mechanics. You basically need a deck of playing cards, your typical poker deck of cards. You're going to be solving the various checks and tests by drawing cards, but you're also going to be generating the events, the encounters, the dangers, all of it. Now, the basic explanation is good, but if you're looking for something that tells you how to roleplay in solo role-playing games, this document expects you to be already familiar with the solo roleplay process. If you have never solo roleplayed before, you can attempt to do it with this document and you're going to have a decent time. But if you don't know how to solo roleplay, please check out my channel. Just use the little magnifying glass and how to roleplay in solo RPGs. I have a few videos on that, so you can truly get pulled into the experience. Now, this happens in the 19th century. This is the 1800s in Bavaria. You have all the information to create a hunter from that context. You have a table to determine your name, your full name. You also have a table to determine your occupation. You determine your attributes randomly. You only have three. You have grit, wit, and hits. Hits are pretty much hit points. Grit is all about physical tasks, any sort of physical task. And wit is all about any sort of mental task, even related to persuasion and similar things. You can also determine your areas of expertise. There is an error here, clearly an error. In the case of search, it says An ability to move silently and use available cover to remain unseen. But no, that is not search, that is stealth. But you have acting, climbing, control horse, convince. All of these areas of expertise will allow you to be successful at various tasks during the game. You also decide on the appearance of the character. You have the information here on how people in the 1800s used to dress, and you determine your luggage. Maybe you carry a revolver, maybe you carry a notebook, a box of matches, etc. Then you have information on the setting of Bavaria. This is the black and white map, but like I said, the document, the package comes with a full color map. Because the setting is Bavaria, you have a lot of information on the Germanic tribes, how they occupied the lands during the Iron Age. You also have information, sorry, on the medieval Holy Roman Empire and what happened after the empire. You have details on the landscape, on the rugged mountains and the dark forests. This section is good, but I think there is too much focus on the Germanic history and not so much on the Germanic vampire myths and legends, which would have been awesome for this game. You also have details on the cities and towns, the village life, the castles that you can encounter, the how to create the atmosphere of horror, and then you have details on the vampire menace. As you can see, some of the art is stock art. You have probably seen these images before. This is all about the nature of the undead. You are never fighting the same type of vampire. This is more on the Captain Kronos side of Hammer horror films, on rather vampire films. You can determine the cult through random generation. That is usually vampires. They have human servitors doing their bidding. You can also determine various magical items. You can determine the well, you have details on the innate vampire powers, invulnerable to normal weapons, how they can charm victims, how they are immortals unless they get killed, how they turn into bats, rats, etc., wolves. You have some details on the good and evil, how various organizations could interact with the whole ordeal. There is a bit of a bias towards Christianity rather than more scientific methods of taking care of the vampire, but that is easily modified. You know, those of you that are in the know, the science fiction YouTube, you know how in the past they used to trick people. They had this well, and they would throw a silver cross, and by the power of Jesus, a silver crucifix. By the power of Jesus, the water is now purified. But no, it was not the power of Jesus, it was the silver. It had antibiotic properties. In science fiction YouTube, you never know with YouTube. So you have details here to create vampire masters, servants, even thugs that serve the vampires, their motivations, their additional powers such as invisibility, teleportation. You can determine the vulnerabilities. How do you destroy the vampire? And what is he weak towards? Maybe he's weak towards silver weapons. Maybe because you know the virus, the in science fiction, the sickness of vampirism. Obviously, silver is going to have an effect on it. Garlic, of course, also antibiotic properties. Do you see? This is not bullshit. This is there's a solid foundation within the fiction. You also have the methods of dispatch. This table is a bit disappointing because many of the methods repeat themselves or are variations. For example, drive a wooden stake through the heart of the vampire. Okay, drive a wooden stake through the head of the vampire. Like, and you have like incinerate repeated 3 times, and you have decapitate with holy wafer in the mouth of the vampire. Mm, and then decapitate with silver blade. That sounds more reasonable, but again, like a bit of a repeat, right? So that table, I think from all of the tables in the book, that one is a bit disappointing. Although you do have some blank tables at the end of the book, but it should have been included here. There should be more variety when it comes to the methods of destroying the vampire. Now, how do you resolve situations? You can use the yes or no oracle, depending on the context. You can use the inspiration tables. You can resolve things through a task resolution, a fight, or a chase. How do you resolve things through the oracles and the other tables? Just draw a card and you obtain a result. Or draw several cards if you wish. When it comes to task resolution, you draw out three cards, and depending on the difficulty of the situation, one of those cards is going to be the number that you need to beat. You compare it with your stat of grit, if it's a physical task, or wit, if it's a mental task. And if your attribute is the same or higher than the difficulty, you draw two cards. If it is not, you only draw one. If you have an expertise in one of the tasks, you can draw an additional card. If any of those cards beat the difficulty, let's verify that. If you have one or more cards that equal or exceed the difficulty, then the task is successful. You are successful in your endeavors, and play continues. Otherwise, something bad could happen. And whether or not the card run for the result is red or black might make a difference. As an option, if that card is black, then there is a drawback. That is unfortunate. If the card is red, then there is an unexpected benefit. So you could even fail with an unexpected benefit, or you could succeed with a drawback. When it comes to fighting and chases, they are handled similarly. You draw out five cards, and they're going to be your hand. Various other factors could affect this. Maybe you find an improvised weapon that is really useful in that combat. Then you employ it, and now you don't spend your card because those five cards you're going to be spending them. How so? You're going to be drawing out cards from the deck. Each card that is drawn represents a difficulty for that combat round or that chase round, and you need to spend one of your five cards to beat that difficulty in order to deal enough damage to the enemy, or in order to catch up to the enemy in a chase or run away from the enemy. Horses could also grant you an advantage. You have an explanation on how the flow of the game proceeds. So in that case, mechanically speaking, on the game side, the book does an excellent job on presenting how you can use the tables. It holds your hand through the entire way, through the entire journey. You even have a complete example of play. So you won't get lost with the tables and oracles contained here. And there are lots of them, apart from the ones that I have already mentioned, like the vampire powers and the weaknesses. You also have a table to determine the start of the mystery. Maybe ghosts were sighted in a graveyard. Maybe your friend has vanished. You also have a table to determine the occupation of a contact. Maybe you contacted a writer or maybe a lawyer. You encountered those non-player characters. You can also determine their personalities. Maybe one of them is bitter, the other one is honest. You can also determine the backgrounds for the aristocrats, perhaps for the vampire himself or herself. Maybe it's all about antique collecting or military history. Maybe the noble is a missing child, or maybe the castle fell into ruins immediately. You can also determine various village encounters. You can determine the town and city locations. You can also come up with various inspirations for anything that is needed. A mystery, a theme, an item, a motivation. Maybe you obtain the result of symbol or blood. Maybe you obtain the result of family or politics. Maybe you obtain the results of key or ring. Maybe you obtain the result of domination or dream. You can also determine various interesting scenario sites, such as an ancient Roman ruin, a cemetery, a farmstead. And like I said at the very end, you have blank tables to come up with your own tables for future sessions. So overall, And your character sheet, of course, you have a fillable character sheet included with this game. Remember that. What do I think about Vampire Hunter? The solo horror role-playing game. Excellent game. My only criticisms: the repeats in that table of the vampire method of destruction. How do you destroy the vampire? And the lack of good solo roleplay explanations. But everything else is top notch. Simple to resolve task system. Many oracles to determine all sorts of things to dynamically generate content as you play the game. But yes, combining that simple system of resolving tasks with the many oracles, focusing strongly on the theme, my highest recommendation. And like I said, perhaps a bit more information on the Germanic myths on vampires and whatnot, instead of the whole background of the Germanic tribes and the Germanic Holy Roman Empire in German lands, etc. Apart from that, my highest recommendation, definitely get Vampire Hunter. And if you haven't seen, if you need an example of an actual play, please check out the playlist in the description. There won't be any spoilers because I am generating things randomly, of course, so your session is going to be considerably different. And that's not even counting my own interpretations of the results. Thank you for watching this review. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, consider joining as a member using the super thanks button. Like, subscribe. I already said that. Well, so just so that you don't forget. Definitely take a look at the information and the description. The information in the description and in the pinned comment. This has been your host, Abraham L. Jaguar, a professional game master. And remember, in tabletop role-playing games, you are not telling stories about your characters. You are experiencing the game world as your characters. Once again, thank you all and see you later.